Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. Good morning. It is Friday, November 29th. It is the day after Thanksgiving. Let's see where my trusty co-host is this morning. Good morning. Let's see. There he
Oh.
is. Good morning,
Sarah,
David. How are you?
I'm
Happy day
doing
after
good.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I went to an orphan's Thanksgiving dinner. Um,
Oh,
from
I'm sure that was sweet.
yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It was very nice.
Little kids, big kids, or a little bit of
No,
both?
a lot of old fogies like me.
Oh, but you said it was orphans, right? So who were the
Yeah, well,
orphans?
I'm an elder orphan, is the way that.
Oh my gosh. So it was those of you who don't have
Yeah,
family.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
David, I should have invited you to the Thanksgiving dinner. You would have been a welcome treat.
Yeah, yeah. That would have been great. We'll have to think about that for next year.
Yeah, I'll let you have a black Thanksgiving, see what that's all about.
Yeah, well,
Well,
this
I
was
actually,
definitely not a Black Thanksgiving.
say it again.
This was definitely not a Black Thanksgiving.
We got to
Yeah,
get you a black Thanksgiving, David, where
yeah.
it's greens, beans, tomatoes, potatoes. You ain't never heard that. You name it. There's this meme, David. I know you know nothing about it, but those who watching, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's this meme, Shirley Caesar, who's a gospel singer, and there's this meme that goes around every Thanksgiving, and she's like doing this little. She's saying this, but they have all these funny little dances and all kinds of things, and it's like greens, beans, tomatoes, potatoes. You name it. It's a joke, baby. Maybe
Great,
next year, when I invite you to
great,
the Thanksgiving dinner, you'll get
great,
it.
great.
But we had an interesting conversation this year at our Thanksgiving. This is like one of the best Thanksgivings I've had in a long time because this time we actually talked politics.
Whoa. Yeah,
I know, David. And that's not something you do at Thanksgiving dinner, especially at a Black Thanksgiving. We
uh,
don't talk politics. So it was, I have some baby cousins, and I call them baby cousins. They're not babies, they're in their 20s, but my baby cousins, they're on fire, and I love their energy because they'll say things. Because I'm in that generation where I'm in between
hmm
my baby cousins and the elders. So
hmm
one of the baby cousins, they started talking about abortion. And one baby cousin, she was just like, no, after 25 weeks, a baby is viable. Like she had all these,
hmm
this belief around why she doesn't believe in abortions. So the baby cousins went back and forth. And then one of the elders, you know how you elders can be, David. It's like whatever comes to your head comes out your mouth. One of the elders, she said, "Oh, she's a Republican." Shut the whole thing down. So we finally had some conversation around politics, and it was really enlightening, and I was excited to talk to my baby cousins about it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
mhm.
great that people are getting engaged, you know, um, and bringing this stuff up, really seeing their connection to the political world. Uh,
Mhm.
I think a good sign just in general. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And then, this new, in 2020, think about it. We're about to have like all these young people that are voting. My youngest son will be voting. So it's like we have a new
wow.
generation of
Yeah.
people, young people that are going to be coming on the scenes and casting ballots. And
Yeah.
they're not for this division. They're not for the racism. They grew up together. All they know is being, integration. They don't know what the elders know. And I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. If we could get them out to vote, that's the big issue. I mean, in Democratic primaries, Bernie Sanders wins by double digits, 20 point plus among the youngest voters from 18 to 40 or so.
Mhm.
He falls off a cliff with people who are older, and that's
Yeah.
those are the two big issues I think that are both in the primary and in the general election. and we have so many people messing with the general election, so many people messing with what's going on, and billionaire oligarchs getting into the race.
But we're not going to let them. We're not going to let these young people are on fire, David. So you know what I want us to talk about the Native Americans. It's so much good. Yeah. Thanksgiving is such a wonderful time. Where Black people, honestly, we celebrate Thanksgiving, David, because we couldn't. So we had to celebrate. What the master celebrated, and it was a time for us to really come together as families. We could eat, like they ate. So it's very special for Black families and in the Black community, what Thanksgiving is, because we couldn't, slavery didn't allow us. So, the Native Americans, this is not something they celebrate at all.
It's irony upon irony there, when you're talking about how this was a symbol of liberation for African Americans, or tradition that represented, I don't know, Jubilee, thanking thanking your ancestors for their liberation, because Black people did it themselves. But for Native Americans, this is Genocide Day, along with Columbus Day. It's a total. There's multiple layers of myth that have been that the country has introduced.
Well, I have a video clip, David, before we dive into.
Let's see if
irony upon irony is what how you coined it. Let's see if we can play this video. If you guys can't hear this, will somebody chime in and let us know? Because David and I we tested it out. This is a brand new platform, y'all. So we got some new technology. We're moving on up. So let's see if we can get this to work, because I really want you to hear from a Native American himself about what this is. Let's see if we can get this video up. There he is. Let's see. Let's see if we can play this. Let's see. If you can't hear it, please let us know.
History, his story. It's not our story. When they proclaimed Thanksgiving, it was in Mystic, Connecticut. A tribe of Indian people, the Pequots, that were thriving and surviving. But shortly after, we taught these white people how to farm and how to take care of the land and raise food. They got beside themselves. A few years after they started prospering, they decided that they were going to take their women and their children out to a big field and have a cookout celebration. No Indians brought deer. There was never a Thanksgiving dinner with them, according to what they say. Not true. The celebration of Thanksgiving was the men walked off from their families and went further north into Mystic, Connecticut, and he murdered these Pequot Indian children, elders, women, and men. Got them in the enclosure of their habitat. They had built forts, per se, but that was only for the protection of their people. And they trapped them in where they couldn't get out, and they set it on fire, and they burned them to death. Then they came back. They were so thankful that they had killed these Indians, but that was the first Thanksgiving, not what you read about in their books.
It wasn't until
yeah, I couldn't hear that, but what he's talking about the massacre of the Pequot in 1637, I guess is what the date was. um, this is really important to understand that the people who came here from England, the Puritans, they were never called pilgrims until the 20th century, but the Puritans were exactly what their name suggests. They were trying to purify the Church of England, and they were extremely intolerant of religious difference between themselves and anyone else. I just read something that they killed four Quakers from the Society of Friends in the about 20 years after that. So the Puritans were really an extremely intolerant sect of Christianity. You might compare them to fundamentalists today, extreme right, religious fanatics, and they they settled actually in what was a deserted um, village of the another Indian First Nation group. The village had been deserted because the a few years before, the European fishermen, English fishermen, had been trading with the village, and they spread smallpox to the village that wiped out almost everybody in the village. So the massacre 15 years after the settlement and the smallpox a few years before, or really just set the stage for everything that happened in the Anglo-American colonies for the next 150, 200 years. So the combination of warring on people and the spread of European diseases, which the Puritans celebrated, the spread of diseases and the destruction of people by smallpox and flu, influenza, and all of these other diseases that were not prevalent here in the Western Hemisphere. Um, you know, there's an estimate that uh, when Columbus landed in 1492, there were somewhere between 80 and 90 million people who lived in the Western Hemisphere, and within 2 generations, 90% to 95% of those people had died. So and it started in the West Indies with murdering the people on the island or attempting to enslave them. And it spread from there. There were 9 million people in the West Indies. In a couple of generations, they were down to about one or less than 1 million. The same happened in Mexico. There were 25 million people there when Cortez conquered it, conquered the Central Valley of Mexico. There were maybe 2 or 3 million that were left after 2 generations. Same is true in Peru, in the Inca, empire, and it was
These
true.
colonizers, these colonizers, what they are, they came into this you say the Western Hemisphere, literally taking over and killing
Well,
off.
the other thing is that it really is wrapped up with the history of African slavery and the African slave trade, because the Native Americans did not make did not. I mean, Africans didn't accept slavery either, but Native Americans had the ability to move west into the hinterland, which they knew better than the Europeans did. And so it was very hard to keep them. And also the old world diseases were literally running through them like a forest fire. So that created a demand for labor, which was met through capturing and
enslaving, importing Africans.
Africans, yeah. So you know that, and that itself was incredibly destructive to Africa. Millions of people died in the civil wars and internal conflicts. The Europeans would arm one side against with gunpowder weapons against the other, another side, and it became a slave gun cycle in Africa, where the only thing that you could get guns for was human beings. So, um, so it
These Native Americans, the people that are native to this country, they've in this video, this gentleman talks about there being like 112 million Native Americans in this country, and when the settlers actually arrived, and now they're down to like about 1 million. And then we look at what's happening out with the pipeline that just leaked, David, just recently. That they were totally, trying to save their native lands, and now we're spilling dangerous chemicals on their native land.
Yeah, the oil pipeline from Canada on down. I think that that the figure of 90 to 100 million is for the whole Western Hemisphere. But even in the part of North America, that's, let's say, north of the Rio Grande River, there probably were about 12 million people who lived here in the 17th century, in the 1600s. And in fact, at the time of the American Revolution, it's very likely that if Indians could have voted in the American, the newly founded United States, they would have been the majority in the population east of the Mississippi River. So, and we have there's a book called American Holocaust, which is about the destruction of Native nations and their resistance, and it points out that in the United States there hasn't been one genocide of Native American people, but there have been literally a dozen or more genocides in waves that push people off the land, as they did with the Cherokee right here in Georgia.
He mentions the paper genocide in the video, so I hope everybody will go back and watch. I'll actually put the link in the comment section. But he actually mentions the paper genocide, that when Native American babies were born, he said that they weren't even considered Native American. They were given other ethnicities, and they were kind of cleansed that way as well.
Yeah. There's two things to keep in mind about the founding of the United States, is that there were two powerful confederacies of Native nations in this country, within the frontiers of the United States. One was the Iroquois Confederation in the Finger Lakes of New York State, and the other one was the Cherokee Choctaw Confederation in this region of North Georgia. And George Washington was, the Iroquois called him town destroyer, because during the American Revolution, he saw the Iroquois as potentially siding with the British, and he sent his army into the Finger Lakes to literally just burn down towns. And at the same time, there were intensive studies by Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson of the organization of these confederations, because they were so sophisticated and were able to keep the peace among these different groups of Iroquois. There were different quote tribes, whatever you want to call them, nations of the Iroquois, and the Confederation was able to maintain a diplomatic peace, the peace through diplomacy, for generations. So they were very interested. And in fact, the Articles of Confederation, the first, constitution of this country, was heavily based on the Iroquois Confederation. And among the Cherokee actually were a literate people. They had newspapers. They sued for in the United States Supreme Court in the 1820s for to maintain control over their land. And Andrew Jackson, who was a homicidal, genocidal maniac, one of really the most aggressive anti-Indian people in U.S. history, defied the Supreme Court and forced the Cherokee off the land, drove them west into Oklahoma territory through that march that was called the Trail of Tears, in which hundreds, if not thousands, of Cherokee died along the way. So,
so David, I'm going to put this comment up, and normally I don't add negative comments to our screen, but I will today. He said many native tribes were horrifically savage. Well, hell, they had every right to be savage if these settlers were coming into their lands and taking over. Yeah,
I think that's really part of perpetuating the myth. For instance, the practice of taking scalps was introduced during the French and Indian War. In the British fought the French, and both sides in the 1760s, 15 years before the American Revolution, both sides used Native American troops. They had allies among the native nations, and when they attacked one side or the other, the way that they were given bounties was on the basis of the scalps that they took. So it was the French and the British that introduced that particular practice, and so I
want to chime in again. He said savage against each other.
Yeah, that is there was warfare that went on between different First Nations groups that were in contention with each other. Part of the reason for it, however, was that they were pushed from the east by the Europeans, so that people who had been in settled territories were being pushed into other people's territories. And so, there was warfare, there was contention. The Sioux were brutal to I can't remember the other First Nations that were around them.
David wants to chime in again. He has a lot to say. You are perpetuating the myth of the noble savage.
Absolutely not. That's not what I'm talking about at all. And the noble savage comes in after the genocide. Voltaire may have started it in I don't even know if that's the case, but you may be. I'll defer to you raising Voltaire. But the noble savage was spread in this country as the U.S. in the late 19th century had virtually wiped out most of the native population. Buffalo Bill, for instance, was engaged in the destruction of the Plains Indians' main source of protein, namely the buffalo, who were killed off by the tens of thousands by the people like Buffalo Bill, who were trying to open the way for the railroads. So this idea that either there was so as the Plains Indians were eliminated and put into concentration camps, which is what the reservations were, and systematically starved, this noble savage myth became very popular in this country, that the native nations are, they just couldn't survive the modern world. and isn't it a shame and isn't it a tragedy? But in fact, without any attribution of where the destruction of those people came from, which is at the hands of the U.S. Army, U.S. cavalry, and the railroads and Western settlement. So, yeah, I mean, in fact, Thomas Jefferson did an extensive study through these reports that he got from Benjamin Franklin, and his attitude towards Native Americans was much more positive than his attitude towards African Americans, who he considered to be somehow, biologically inferior. But the
He says the paper genocide and enslavement of dark-skinned Indians is the biggest crime that was done.
Yeah, I think that there's no doubt about it, that the destruction of the civilizations in the Western Hemisphere, from the Aztecs to the Incas to the Cahokia people in the southern Mississippi Valley, the mound builders who had towns of 5,000 to 10,000 people. There were major civilizations in the Western Hemisphere, and part of the reason that they couldn't stand up to the Europeans was gunpowder weaponry. Part of the reason was that they were vulnerable, extremely vulnerable to the Eastern Hemisphere diseases. And missed that comment by Cheryl there about the Mohawks. The Mohawks were among
some Mohawks allied themselves with the French Canadians and attacked my family's settlement in Schenectady massacre of 1690. They were recruited because politics between English and French over territory.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that these native nations were, they understood what was going on. The Mohawks were part of the Iroquois Confederation. They understood what was going on. They were trying to play one side against the other, and that's exactly why Washington sent his troops into the Finger Lakes, was because he didn't want them to maintain their independence and have the potential of siding with the British. So what happened in this country is the utter destruction of people who had contributed, to enormously to the world system. I mean, this is the so-called Atlantic Exchange, where all of these New World crops and New World silver went into the world economy. There's a really ironic book, a book called having the ironic title "Indian Givers," and it was written about 1992, with the 500th anniversary of Columbus. It talks about all of these contributions of native nations, and a lot of the silver that was mined in both Peru and in Mexico was done by slave labor. It was organized by the Spanish. The peoples were organized into slave labor, and they died by the tens of thousands. So anyway, as far as the Puritans are concerned, they were just the northern extension.
Holy rollers. That's the word that comes to my head. Holy rollers. Those that are claimed to be holier than thou, but you kind of have to be mindful that they're not so holier than thou.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that the Puritans were Calvinists. All right, they weren't Lutherans. They weren't the followers of Martin Luther. They were the followers of John Calvin. And John Calvin believed that 90% of the Christian population was damned, and that there was an elect that was made up of people that the Puritans thought of as themselves, and so that was their view of the world, not just of ourselves, but of not just of um, Christians were even Christians were not immune from their wrath or their antagonism. So
Well, there's Egberto.
yeah.
Happy day after Thanksgiving.
Hey,
Egberto.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, or happy whatever day we're going to call it.
Just day after Thanksgiving. Just day after Thanksgiving.
Day after Thanksgiving.
We ain't celebrating nothing.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I can enter the conversation on the right platform. How you guys are doing this morning?
Hey, Egberto, Politics Done Right. How are you?
I learned a lot today. In fact, y'all sent me to the to Wikipedia to learn about Noble Savage, and I realized you guys must be liberal arts people, because those of us who did engineering didn't learn any of that stuff. So I'm having to catch up with you guys, man.
Yeah. You see why I love David so much? Because you know what, the stuff he knows, I'm learning every day with him.
I'm sitting down there like, this guy comes up with the Noble Savage, and I have an idea what it sounds like, and then David comes and David puts him to bed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say that. I mean, he was making some points about that are part of both trying to separate out the myth from the history. And so much of our history is wrapped up in myth that I think he and I hope other people, and I appreciate him coming on, and raising those things, will not take my word for it, but just go out and look at some of this history that you can find some of it online, and other things, you have to read some books, I mean,
no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, David, it's beyond my time to get into the type of books you guys read in those liberal arts things. So I think that's the importance of y'all's show. And notice I'm Texan now, y'all's show. The thing about it is that is why it is so important, because man, you get the chance to learn stuff. You see what I'm saying? And that's why these things are so important, because we never had these platforms before where, I'm going to start talking about the Noble Savage, and where did I learn it? From the Matter for Georgia show. So, I mean, here you go.
Well, here's the
look. I still got to go back and do research, because I still don't quite know what it is. So I got to go do the research.
Well, I have it up on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is good most of the times, except when it gets into political season, when people try to change reality. But
yeah, there's a lot of editing that goes on on Wikipedia, and you have to be really aware of when somebody is inserting their a myth, in effect, into the discourse.
Exactly.
It's really hard. But here's the thing. I mean, ultimately, this country's history has been written by and for the dominant white elite, and so every time you hear history, think white-splaining. This is my new word. White-splaining. And unless there's a critique of the white-splaining in our history, you're probably getting white-splaining and not the real history.
Well, they say that your history is written by the victor, so it is written from the point of view of the victor. You don't, and that point of view is always going to be a positive point of view, because I mean, if you take the genesis of this country and then watch how we talk about other people's immorality, and then we don't really look in the mirror to see what we have done. A lot people are, and that's why around the world, while Americans pat themselves on the back, around the world, people sit down and they know history too, and they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, exactly. That is really quite true. Lincoln did not free the slaves.
No,
The
thank you.
slaves emancipated themselves through a general strike and through their participation in the Union Army. Columbus did not discover America. All of these things, that are these little, and the United States is not a democracy.
Thank you.
There are elements of it that are democratic, but that's not the way it was founded. It was founded to exclude the vast majority of people.
95% of people, yes,
who were not of Europe, who were not male, of
white
European
and land owning,
who were property owners.
Yeah.
That's who founded and who could vote in this country, and that was maybe 15% of the population. And as I said, if Native Americans had been incorporated into the U.S. polity, into the political body, they probably would have outnumbered or outvoted even the Europeans and the Africans put together. So, unless we are, and their social organization, their economic organization was as sophisticated as the Europeans was at that time. They just didn't have the access to metals that the Europeans had managed, because for one thing, they didn't need them. And
David, let me jump in real quick. Let's give Egberto the last couple minutes to really kind of bring us up to speed nationally. I know Thanksgiving is probably, I don't know what's going on around the world, David.
Well, let me tell
Egberto.
you, the thing that bothers me right now is Brother Obama, and what he has been doing over the last few days. I mean, as it turns out, I wrote several critical articles of him, and you can imagine the plight I am, or the backlash I'm taking from Democrats who just want to idolize him. But one of the things that I placed out there, and I'd like folks, if they get a chance to take a look at it, is I found the speech when Obama said, "We cannot wait for another person. We cannot wait for another time. We are who we have been looking for." And his new commentary is not hope and change, but hope won't change a damn thing. So my thing right now is to try to, what I've been doing with these last few weeks is trying to encourage people to remember who Obama said he used to be, and to hold on to those words, and to use those words which were the words that progressives needed to hear. It wasn't just about hope and change. It really was, don't wait. It really was, it is time for us to go out there and take it. It was, we are who we've been waiting for. Let's remember that and stop waiting for Obama to tell us what the oligarchy is telling him to tell us. For the $400,000 that he get per speech, and for the great amount of money they gave him for a book deal they likely won't ever recover in sales.
Wow. You can find Mr. Egberto Willies Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, YouTube, Periscope, Instagram. This man is everywhere. politicsdoneright.com.
Thank you so kindly, guys. And I'll continue listening I really enjoyed the discussion today, and I really learned a lot from you guys today. So please keep up the good work.
Thank you, Egberto. Have a good one. Bye-bye. All right. We have Miss Robbie. Hey, Robbie.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you? Happy day after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Yeah. I always feel a little weird about Thanksgiving. I'm sure you know why.
Yeah. We all should. Mr. Dominique Huff, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good, sir. Adjust your camera so we're not looking at your ceiling.
Right, there we go.
And if you have us playing in the background, you might want to turn us off. We're getting an echo.
All right.
I hear us.
Good morning, Robbie. Good morning, Dominic.
Morning,
good morning. How y'all doing?
everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Dominique Huff, Mr. Home Rule News, who we have not seen in quite a while. Welcome back to the broadcast, sir.
Yes, feels great to be back. There's a lot going on.
Robbie, bring us up to speed, you and Dominique.
So I guess I want to thank you, Tamara, for providing us this opportunity, as always. And I just saw Alberto was, you and David, of course. And I just saw Alberto was off, and y'all were talking about voting, and who was allowed to vote initially in the country, which were landowners, men, etc. And not a lot of people. Well, I don't know. Maybe people do know that. Who knows? Who knows what people know? I don't know. But long story short, that ties us right into what we're speaking about today, because Egberto also, kudos to Egberto, had allowed us an opportunity, meaning, from the community collective perspective, to come on his show. I'm getting a lot of backfeed.
You are. I think it's your earpiece, your earbuds are picking up.
Should I take it off?
Do you have any ones with the cord, the old school cords?
Oh, okay. All right.
Dominique can bring us up.
Okay.
Dominique can bring us up to speed while you get your sound straight. Dominique.
Okay.
What's going on?
Yeah, nothing
Might
much.
be you, Dominique.
Yes, probably was. I don't have my headphones with me today.
Yeah, where your head? It might be you messing up Robbie.
Yeah.
Robbie, you might be fine. Might be Dominique.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
probably me, because I don't have the headset. But we got some very interesting things coming up in the next couple of weeks in regards to ethics violations, in regards to the upcoming 2020 elections. And we're about to see a lot of pandering going on, because all of a sudden we have elected officials who are running for office for the state seats. They're now come to town hall meetings, now want to know what we think about the issues, now want to say, let's work on something, because 2020 is going to be a pivotal year. And Tamara and Dave and Robbie, you all know about what's going to happen in 2020. Whoever's
all eyes on Georgia.
Yeah, not only that, but it's census time. Because once we get that new numbers in, whatever party's in control is going to gerrymander the seats to get what they want. So the Democrats, well, the funny part, the Democrats gerrymandered in 2002 and lost their own map, which was the funniest thing. So now the question is, who will be in charge of drawing these maps in 2021, 2022? And everybody will be looking at their maps, from the cities to the counties to the state. So we're going to be seeing some guaranteed shifting going on, recognizing population spurs, recognizing decrease in population, along with the battle that's going on in Cobb, trying to turn it blue. I've never seen serious Democrats run in Cobb County. I always seen joke Democrats run, but this is the first time I've seen some serious Democrats stepping up in Cobb.
Robbie, can you hear us?
Now I can.
Okay.
I did hear everything Dominique said, and it ties right in. So just to tie it back together, we had been covering, Tyler Perry and developments that have happened that were city funded, and also the MP structure. And Dominique's very familiar. Egberto allowed us to cover it. You allowed us to cover it. And what I think I missed the mark on was to really hit the point of all politics being local. Egberto and you and Dominique, who's obviously media, always, mention how our politicians kind of sort of disappear to a degree, and then they don't show up until years later on these local issues. They tend to focus on national. But the problem with that, and that's really what this broadcast is about, is I wanted to give a couple of concrete examples and hear your thoughts on it, on local politics and how things from the bottom level affect in such a major way. And one of the irony is what David was talking about earlier, like who is allowed to vote, right? In our country's past, it was wealthy landowners, men. Well, we, to some degree, in the neighborhood association, or NPU, the neighborhood planning unit structure, have a problem right now, because we have neighborhood associations who charge monetary dues for people to vote or hold office. So in essence, ironically, when David said that there was maybe 15 to 20% of the population who were voting and it was leaving out the indigenous people, it's not very different today in our community engagement structure. And what that has done, let me give you a concrete example. And I'm so grateful that Dominique has taken the time to be here today, because this man has been here for all of it. And he has righteously and ethically tried to cover media in a way that was fair. And it's almost heartbreaking, because when you're fair and other people are not fair and they're playing dirty, there's a component there that is just really hard to stomach. But on the basic level, what our neighborhood associations did, let me give a real concrete example. Westview, Adair Park, Sylvan Hills, Capitol View Manor, Capitol View, they collectively got together and because they're an elite group, because they charge monetary dues to allow people to vote, they sponsored for-profit tours to run through these communities, real estate tours. And they lobbied a city hall elected official, an at-large, who believed that they were representative of the collective. But as we know, they were representative of an elite demographic, primarily homeowners who are gainfully employed, who charge monetary dues. Therefore, they're allowed to participate in these neighborhood associations. And they control the neighborhood associations by the bylaws, etc. They control the funding and the grants. They control who's allowed to vote. Therefore, they control the agenda that goes to the NPU. And what did that large member do upon their bidding, upon their advocacy for their demographic that's non-inclusive? She used city funds to fund more real estate tours with booklets included in these tours for anyone who wanted to go, okay, busloads that included how to buy tax liens, how to get to people's addresses and contact information. And she had the trees in Sylvan Hills pruned so that the neighborhoods would look prime for these people who were cash investors, wholesalers, agent investors. And that is how year after year, Southwest Atlanta has become inundated, literally inundated, and with cash investors, with wholesalers, with agent investors. And you have to understand, when you hear about the affordability crisis, when you hear about the low inventory, when you have wholesalers, people who say, we will buy your house cash, misrepresenting, not advising people on who they really represent, the investor, illegal submarkets that are barely legal, that are not being regulated with people's assets. Okay, sometimes the most costly thing to someone that impacts generational wealth. And so what that did is it shrunk our inventory, and all those houses got flipped. And you, me, David, Dominique, and every taxpayer in Atlanta is now paying to subsidize developers for affordable housing. We're paying for a homeless epidemic that's 5 times. We're paying for the rising crime and gentrification. We're paying for the rising crime that gentrification causes. We have people sweltering under our bridges. And if you think that's not an economic factor, it's a mistake to think that. It has impacted commercial sales. They are so unstable because these people bought so low that the appraisals won't appraise out. So we have more empty areas. The people who did gain were not locals. Take a look at Latin America and see what happens when people don't gain. Eventually, you have a revolution. We have a huge disconnect here between the new people who are predominantly wealthy, who are broken into every day. Their houses are broken into every day. Their cars are broken into every day. We are paying for these police officers to come write reports every day. And that all was arose out of a broken NPU system that's not being reformed, that it's all politics is local, that our politicians don't seem to understand. They are too busy on national issues. And we're all paying for it. Dominique has been a witness to it. It didn't need to happen. We had a collective community-driven plan that they obstructed. And let me tell you the problem with agent investors who are all inundated in this area. I am not an agent investor. If I was an agent investor, not one of my clients who constantly close with equity on their properties when they buy would ever have a good deal, because I would take them all. How are we allowing this? That's it. That's all I have.
Dominique.
Yeah. Well, the co-sign what she said, we're dealing with local officials who think fighting President Trump is more important than dealing with local issues in their backyard. When we look at what's happening with, give a good example, the Capitol Road project, they want to put light rail, monorail along Capitol Road from the Oakland City MARTA station to Greenbrier Mall, which is a great idea because the 83, that route is the busiest route, if not the second busiest route in the MARTA system. So we have lots of people who rely on that to go to those businesses at Greenbrier, to go to the rail, to go further in town, to go to their jobs, or what have you. So now, when it comes to these plans, all of a sudden, these people who want to use these things for their leisure and it's fun to do, want to start inserting their opinions on how it should be built. And when we have meetings at 6 o'clock in the evening, a working class person cannot come to a meeting at 6 o'clock in the evening. They're stuck in traffic. So a lot of these decisions are being made at 6 o'clock, 6:15 in the evening, or 5 o'clock in some cases, or how Keisha loves to do it. You get the world's smallest room, invite everybody, do a capacity issue, have the room filled with your people before everybody else gets there, and then say, well, we had a town hall meeting, none of those issues came up, or won't you write your questions on a note card, and then we'll all get back to it. And of course, they'll never get back to you with those issues because we were so caught up in having a mayor named Keisha who did nothing for her district. But, I'm sexist for saying that, and I don't care anymore. We also have gay elected officials who are more concerned about gay rights, and you got people empowerment in the southern half of your district, and you say, oh, let's have a meeting with Councilwoman Joyce Shepard, who refuses to talk to certain people because we called her out. Then this meeting that Robin has been promised for 2-3 years has yet to happen. We're beyond let's have a cupcake. We're beyond it's a simple disagreement. We're beyond, oh, we said some things on Facebook that we need to apologize for. We're at the point now, community cannot wait for us to sit down and have an apology meeting. We need to have a meeting to where we say, okay, we know the issues. What can we do right here, right now? Because I'm here to tell folks, those problems that I'm seeing, they're going to South Fulton. That's why South Fulton was created. They're going to Union City because Union City now is pretty much a hood that nobody wants to talk about. And I have friends in Union City. But they know their city is no longer the Union City it once was. Union City has a lot of crime issues down there because you're moving people from Atlanta, from East Point, down there because they have no places to go. All those apartments are off the bus line, so you have dirt trails where people are walking to catch these buses and take long bus routes to their jobs. And we all know you're one late bus away from being fired. And on top of all of this, when you bring these issues up to the elected officials, such as Khalid Kaboom, who brands himself as the blackest elected official ever, he's indifferent. And he's in South Fulton representing the Old National Highway, one of the worst areas in that city. But you're ready to focus on fighting me for writing articles instead of fighting the issues in your district. And then you wonder why your voter turnout is going lower and lower and lower. Because I tell folks, I'm used to the fighting. I'm used to them calling me names. It's not going to make me stop. It's going to make me get more vicious with my attacks now because I'm no longer spared their feelings.
I have to co-sign everything he said. It's completely accurate. I mean, Park Cannon, where has Park Cannon been? She's our district senate. Khalid come out, blocked him, but blocked a reporter from his page. I have been waiting a year, I'm sorry, prior to that. With the Bottoms administration, our group has been waiting. She publicly stated in a town hall that we would meet. We have yet to meet. Invest Atlanta had a building, 7,000 square foot. The owner was my client. He was willing to develop it, work with Invest Atlanta, even affordable housing, hire local people. Can't even get them to respond. This is all city agency. This is our city government. Right now, I've been contacting a commissioner who I hope to hear back from on a county contract, $1.8 million. I'm trying to give free info. I'm literally trying to get free info for bono that will help taxpayers. I'm risking my real estate career talking about these issues with wholesalers and agent investors. I'm getting blackballed for it. And I can't get City Hall to keep their word.
Dominique.
Yeah. I was just going to add to that. It's like she's right about keeping City Hall from addressing the word, because I'm tired of hearing what's the solution. Won't you all come up with a solution? There was a plan that was obstructed. There was a business association, Southhold Business, that was created to address certain issues that is now on mothballs right now. We have Atlanta Southwest that was created to address certain issues. And by the way, and I know I'm not supposed to tell people this, but I have a certain elected official, and I can't give too many details since this was given to me by an informant. So I have to be very careful with what I'm about to say. I have a certain elected official that is making it her point to go and talk about me to people who are working with us with Atlanta Southwest. That is scaring people of working with us, saying things are going to happen to them if they keep doing what we're doing. So I just want to put that out there of what one of my council members is doing. And I'm used to that. But once that kind of comes more to play, when I get the information, I can share, because the person dude was BS. But the fact that you're going to go over somebody's head to dog me out, embarrass this person in front of their boss, who has helped us do certain projects, because you're upset because you was not included, because you chose not to answer an email, you chose not to answer a phone call, you chose to do whatever. But now that things have moved forward without you, now you want to go and try to destroy. Because see, this is what happens in Southwest Atlanta, South Fulton County. We have black elected officials who act like white supremacists, who are worse than white supremacists. I dealt with white supremacists before. And at least with white supremacists, I know my black ass stand up when I deal with them. With these nigger white supremacists, excuse my French, or I'm not sure what the code is on the show, with those type of white supremacists, they'll act like, because we got the same skin, they'll say all the things that sound good, but then you're plotting behind somebody's back to stop work that can get done in the community. I don't care about getting credit for things. There's so much stuff I have fought for that has happened that I've never gotten 1 ounce of credit. Don't really care. Same thing with Roberta over there. She's gotten things that happened. I got 1 ounce of credit. This is not about credit. This is not about look at us. It's all about getting the job done for the people. We have fought for sidewalks that I have yet to put 1 foot on, because those people need the sidewalk, bus shelters, better school conditions, additional police patrols. These are things that we have stood up, put our businesses on the line, have gotten blackballed because these people could not fight for themselves. Now, do we apologize for that? No. Do we look and say what has happened? Yes. But now we say we have to fight smarter now. And we have to look at what's going to happen. Because now that they can't cheat no more, and I hope those federal indictments come first quarter of next year that I've been promised that are coming. And if there's not one indictment for that Fulton County Elections Department, where all that fraud is going on, where all those stolen elections are coming down, I'm gonna really have some issues. Because until we address Fulton County Elections Department, the Cobb County Elections Department, we would never have a fair election in the city of Atlanta or Fulton County, because it's rigged. You use vacant property, you use homeless people, you use cats and dogs. How did we have 12 people voting on a property and there's no house, and the house has been gone for 5 years? Where are those people staying at? And that lot's wooden, and so then you have a boarded up house. It looked like, I wouldn't even go in there for trick or treating, but yet they had 3 people voting there. I had an informant tell me that the mayor lost by 2,500 votes, and they went through this data, and I'm yet to get this data. So I hate pulling data I don't have, but the person is very reputable. So I'm going to say the data showed that a lot of voters came from dilapidated houses, this code enforcement list that secret people have, to where everybody knows where every vacant house is in Atlanta. But those houses have voters that are still voting there. There are people who have been displaced that are not really, I'm trying to think of a good word to say, they're not really politically engaged or simply involved, but yet they're voting. You got displaced when we tore your apartment complex down 20 years ago, but you're still voting to city of Atlanta.
And please understand that this all has a cost to us. If we a very expensive cost, whether it's a safety cost, whether it's a financial cost, that one example on the tours has impacted the whole city. And the people, the elite people on the north side are paying more taxes. You are paying more tax. Everyone is, because of the way that we allow things to happen in a non-inclusive way that has a trickle effect and winds up costing us 5 times more in 7 other problems. So that one example is one. the way that Tyler Perry has been handled or has been allowed to manage outside of Oakland City, and not hiring local people, and not having an in-house union, and not revitalizing Oakland City, but allowing new people to come get the spoils off of a base that he got for on the low. The same thing with Annie Casey. This is all city funding. Our city is funding this, and it's not being regulated. And it appears as though the elected officials seem to be in an elite protected status, and they are not executing what's necessary. Tamara, you always want solutions. NPU reform immediately. Ethics reform. The ethics is, I submitted more than once a complaint, and there's no investigation. That department needs to be reformed. And
so we're before David, I'm gonna let you jump in and give us the final words. We're at the top of the hour. This has been there's activists around Georgia. We're not having it. And, I'll say we, because we speak truth to power, no matter the cost. But David, go ahead and give us our final words.
I just want to make the observation of the connection between what Stacey Abrams is doing with fair fight for voting. This is really the kind of thing that Dominique is bringing up and that Robbie are bringing up. That complicates the situation that we're in. It's not just voter suppression at the state level, right, Dominique? I mean, that's what you're pointing out. There is voter suppression going on, in a much broader range of areas or practices that I think we really, Stacey Abrams just hired Greg Palast, who has been the guy who has been doing all of the work for the last decade. And he's got a whole organization behind him that has been exposing voter suppression. I would really like to see these things brought together, connected to one another. That the large-scale voter suppression and the kinds of things that you're talking about and that Robbie is talking about the way in which the influencers, the 9.9%, as I call them, the investors, the folks that are really not part of the working class but are profiting off of off of speculation.
But what I hear Dominique and Robbie saying is that with what Stacey Abrams is doing, there's going to be fingers pointed at both sides of this.
Yes.
It ain't just Democrats and it's not just Republicans. It's both sides that are playing the middle, and we're all being played. But we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank my guests, Robbie and David and Dominique and Berto. Thank you guys. It's always a pleasure. Dominique, please don't stay away so long. There's always this broadcast always has room for you. So don't stay away. Keep bringing us to this great information. We got to keep putting it out. We got to keep speaking truth to power. We're not going anywhere. And that is why I am running for the United States Senate, because I'm not backing away from the issues. I'm not backing away from the problems. And we're going to call everybody out. That's Democrats and Republicans. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And we're going to be on the right side of history. So I want to thank you guys for always speaking truth to power. We'll be back. Remember, in January, we'll be taking this broadcast to Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. But right now, through the month of December, we will be back next Friday, right here, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter now. We're everywhere. So thank you guys, and you guys have a wonderful afternoon.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.